Hey, life group leaders. I hope you're doing well today. I wanted to send you a video just to go over some of the things that we discussed at the Grove. And hopefully, if you weren't able to make it, this will give you a clear picture of some ways we tried to prepare you for the fall semester. And if you were here, hopefully this is just a helpful reminder that can kind of solidify some of the things that we talked about. And so let me just dive in, and I'll just do this as fast as possible, knowing that your time is precious and I don't want to waste any of it. So enough of the preamble. In our life group leader session, basically what we did was we covered a few housekeeping items, which I'll mention at the end. But probably the most important thing we did is I shared an initiative that I wanted to include all of our leaders in on first and give you the option to actually participate in this if it's something that you sense God might be leading you to. And so basically what we did is we discussed this prevailing need that we're sensing in our church for discipleship. And we know that discipleship happens in relationships. It happens in relationships, it happens in your groups, it happens in small settings, it happens in relational environments. And so what we want to do as a church is we want to continue to strengthen our life groups, of course. That's something that will always be a priority. But we'd also like to launch an initiative that we've actually done here in a small measure in the past, but it's an initiative that is going to help be more of a discipleship intensive that I think is going to really help people learn the basics of what it means to be like Jesus, become like Jesus, and do what Jesus does. Because our life groups, like I said, are hugely important and they're ongoing pretty much all the time. You never outgrow your need for community. But what we're finding is we have so many new people from our church. About 90% of our first-time guests are young families with kids in the home, and most of them have kids in elementary school. And frankly, a lot of the people that are coming to our church are coming from church backgrounds where they have been hurt for one reason or another. We don't always know why or their situations. But over and over again, what we hear of these young families who are coming to Center Grove and they have no concept of what discipleship is, but they want to grow and they're hungry and they know that their life is broken and they need some help. And so what we want to do is we want to create a discipleship pathway essentially that is going to help everybody, whether you're a seasoned Christ follower or you're new to the church, coming from a church where you've been hurt. We want to create an intentional pathway for these people to learn to do the basic things that is going to help people be with Jesus, become like Jesus, and do what Jesus does, or in our language, to love, grow, serve, and share. So without further ado, what we are launching this fall in a beta test type form is something called discipleship mentoring groups. That's short for DMG, discipleship mentoring groups. And what a discipleship mentoring group is, it's a gender-specific group of 3 to 5 people where you make a covenant to meet together bi-weekly for 8 to 12 months, where in those meetings what you do is you read the Bible together, you memorize scripture together, you ask each other accountability questions having to do with things that you are wanting accountability for, but also having to do with how you're doing reaching people and connecting with people who are close to you but far from God. And then you'll also just simply confess sin together. I mean, that's really what you're doing. And you meet bi-weekly. And it's really the basics of the faith that, for one reason or another, sometimes those things just take a back seat. Whenever life gets busy, whenever things start to feel like they're going well, sometimes we sit on our heels a little bit and we don't prioritize the spiritual practices of the faith or the spiritual disciplines that really help us love, grow, serve, and share. So this initiative is not replacing life groups. We actually want it to dovetail and strengthen our life groups. And I want to give life group leaders the first stab at being involved in this beta group if you would like to be. And this is not going to be for everybody. What I shared with the life group leaders who were at the Grove last night was this is not a fix all of your problems type of promise. It's not like if you do these 5 steps in 30 days, your spiritual life will you'll lose 30 pounds. That's really not what we're after. We're after calling people to a life of discipleship, which frankly, if you read the New Testament, many times when people are called to this higher standard, they end up going away. And my favorite story that talks about this is John chapter 6. Jesus has a large crowd, and then he goes to teach in the synagogue. He had just fed a big crowd, and people are struggling to understand what he's saying, and they're struggling with belief, and some are just following him to get something from him. And so what Jesus does is he doesn't pull out his best sermon, 5 ways to fix your marriage or anything like that. What he does instead is he says, unless you guys eat my flesh and drink my blood, you cannot be my disciples. And that's, of course, figurative. But what he's saying is you have to be the type of person who feasts on Jesus if you want to follow him. And to feast on Jesus, we need to spend time in his word. We need to spend time in prayer. We need to confess sin to each other. And we really need to know each other and be known by each other. And sometimes it's hard to squeeze all that into a life group gathering, frankly, especially a co-ed life group where men and women have different struggles and they aren't readily able to share that in front of the whole group. So this DMG initiative is basically something that we're launching, Lord willing, in November. We want to have a couple trainings for people on how to do these discipleship mentoring group tools before we launch this in November. And if you are interested as a life group leader to help basically be put in an environment almost like a spiritual boot camp where you can learn some basics of the faith, and even if you already know these things, we all need to sometimes have our hearts stirred again afresh with love for Jesus. So if you want to be a part of this, whether it means you're just in a group to start or you help lead a group, then I would love for you to join us. But I would not want you to join us if you feel like you cannot commit to something. In fact, people who commit to a DMG who don't really want to do it, oftentimes it will hurt the culture of the group in the long run. So I'd love for you to join us in this. I'm going to send you an email with some of the overview of what I've just shared so that you can actually have it on paper. But I wanted to give you the vision, and I wanted to actually say it to you. Even though I couldn't say it in person, I wanted to at least record a video for you so that you could be involved in this if you want. A number of life group leaders said they did want to be involved last night. And this is something that, as the front lines of our church, I want you to have the first go at being involved in this. So there's probably a lot of questions you have. I genuinely would love to answer them. Some were asked last night, but I don't want to make this video too long by just going on and on about details. And so I want to just open the door for you to call me, for you to text me, for you to email me. Any questions you have about this. We would like to start training some people in these tools that we use in these groups on September 7th. So that is coming up very quickly. It's a Wednesday night at 6:30, and we would, and you're invited to that, but we want to know that you're coming so that we know which rooms to meet in and how many resources to get ready for you and everything like that. So that is enough for the Discipleship Mentoring Group Initiative. If you want to be involved in this, text me or call me, or you can email me, but you're always welcome. You never bother me if you call me or text me. I actually love hearing from you. So do not be hesitant to do that. Let me just take a minute and pause, and I'm going to just share briefly a couple of housekeeping items. That way, if you're watching this video and it's getting too long, you kind of know where a solid break is, where we transition. So really quickly, basically the other housekeeping items we mentioned is I just wanted to continue to encourage you to be faithful in submitting your attendance. We've been in a project where we have basically tried to clean up our database and make sure all our attendance, and not just our attendance, but the information we have on people is accurate. And that's not so that we can, be Big Brother. Honestly, the reason that we even have a database and why we bother you about attendance is because it's a shepherding issue. We want to be able to shepherd our people well, and to shepherd people well, we need to know where they are, and we want to be able to track that really well. And so because there's so many people at our church, we can't just do that off the top of our heads. So that's why we use the database, and that's why you keeping attendance helps us greatly in shepherding the people here well. So please keep doing that faithfully. And then secondly, we mentioned I shared a little bit about our leadership development process. Frankly, as a church, we don't have a really streamlined pipeline for developing a leader and bringing them up through the ranks, but we hope to build that, Lord willing, in the years ahead. But for now, the process, I shared what that could look like right now. So in short, if you have somebody in your group who is what I call FAT, faithful, available, and teachable, then what you do is you have a conversation with that faithful, available, and teachable person, and you tell them, I see potential in you, you've been faithful, available, and teachable. Would you consider taking on more responsibility within this group? I can't make any promises, but I'd love to help you start this process if you want to be involved in this. And then after you have a conversation with them, don't promise them leadership because you never know what could come up in the training process. Just tell them that you see potential and that you'd love for them to step into this process. And once you do that, then you can actually connect them with me. Just tell me about this person. So, John Doe said he wanted to learn more about leading a life group or co-leading a life group with me. And then what I do is I'll reach out to John. I send him an application. So a life group leader application that's meant to be a little bit to scare people away who aren't serious about it, but it's also meant to give us a clear picture on where this person needs to grow. I'll send them an application. Then I will actually meet with John and we'll talk about it and go over it. And then I'll pass John back to you and say, all right, John is ready to be trained. Here's a resource that I'd recommend reading with John and training him in. And so I want the responsibility of training the leaders to be in your hands because you lead a group and your boots on the ground. But I want to just help you with resources and tools. And then I'll have an application where I'll ask things that maybe you wouldn't think to ask or wouldn't care to ask. And that way we're all working together on this. But we desperately we're praying for more laborers in our midst. We always need more life groups. We always need more life groups to multiply because frankly, my generation, the millennials, we're really fickle and we don't do as well jumping into an existing life group. We do a lot better when you jump onto a life group that is starting new. Whereas generations older than mine, I love them because they come up to me on a Sunday morning and they're like, give me a list of life groups and I'm just going to find one myself. I don't need your help. Millennials like a little bit more help and like it to be a little easier. So we don't want to make it so easy that we're just becoming a consumer driven church, but we do want to make it hospitable and easy for people to get connected. So that's why we always need more leaders. And then lastly, I did invite you to the Pregnancy Network is hosting a Walk for Life in September, and I will include a link to that in an email I send you because the date is escaping me right now. But that is something that would be a great thing to involve your groups with. Last thing, this has been a longer video than I hoped, but I've been here a year now, and I just want to say it really has been a joy to get to know you guys. I don't know everyone super well yet, and because there's a lot of you, but I want to get to know you even better. My first year, I've just tried to do a lot of learning, a lot of listening, and I want to keep learning and listening, but I also would love to start seeing some building happening. Us build a leadership pipeline, us build easier pathways to multiply life groups, us build a discipleship pathway like the DMG initiative. Those are some things that we'd love to see happen, and we literally cannot do it without you. You are the answer to my prayer of Luke 10:2 that God would send more laborers into the harvest. So thank you so much. And I would love to hear from you. Please let me know if you're interested in the discipleship initiative, and I will send you more details in the days ahead. I love you. God bless you.